You're listening to the Author Inside You podcast, a weekly podcast designed to motivate you to finish writing a book, choose a publisher, and have your work build an audience. Keep listening if you're looking to get propelled into the next chapter of your life. And now, it's the Author Inside You podcast with your host, Leah and Matt Rafferty.
Hello, and welcome to the Author Inside You podcast. I'm Matt Rafferty.
And I'm Leah Rafferty.
Joining us today is Andre Valdes, author of Leader by Choice, 7 Decisions That Spark Your Purpose, Passion, and Perseverance. Andre is currently a United States diplomat for over 12 years, where he's gained vast experience in international leadership and management. He's now a part-time entrepreneur, sharing his inspiration by motivating audiences through speaking and writing. Welcome, Andre. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, Matt. Yeah, it's great to be here. Thank you for having me on the show.
Well, thank you. Well, Andre, I have to ask, what's it like being a diplomat?
Well, it's pretty interesting. Like you mentioned, I've been doing this now for about 12, 13 years, and I've been posted to 3 countries, actually 4 countries, Rwanda, Japan, Cuba, and now currently Armenia.
Wow.
And it's really been fascinating because, every place that I've been, it's just a completely different culture experience. It kind of forces you outside of your comfort zone because you have to adjust everywhere you go. But it's been a phenomenal experience.
Wow. So you're in Armenia right now?
That's correct.
Oh, wow. How cool. And then you've also lived in Cuba?
I did. 3 years.
Wow. I feel like we could talk for an hour about living in Cuba. I mean, that sounds so cool.
What a nice life. I mean, just to, like you just said, learning the cultures, learning about other people, about seeing, opening your eyes to so many different experiences. What a wonderful life. Congratulations.
Thank you.
You wrote the book as an entrepreneur, or did you write it as a diplomat, or just as a friend? And who were you writing the book for?
Oh, great question. I wrote the book almost as if I was writing it for myself, but about maybe 10, 15 years earlier in my life. Because one of the things that I realized, I just turned 40. I've had a pretty stable, great career now for 13 years. But I reached this point where I was like, hey, you know what? I've acquired new skills. I've gained new interests. And so there was a point in my life where I was kind of like a little demotivated. I felt frustrated. I felt stuck, and I wasn't sure what it was. And so, I realized that I was going through this process where I felt like I had accomplished a lot, but at the same time, I felt so unfulfilled. I felt bored. I felt stuck. And then I started thinking about my life. And then that's when I realized that one of the things that I wanted to accomplish, and let me backtrack a little bit. I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur. I just didn't know what to do. And so I kind of had that bug in me, and I didn't know where to start, and I didn't know what to do. And so I started getting some business coaching, and I started talking to a lot of people. I thought about different business ideas. And then one of the things, the most powerful thing that I realized is that the thing that I enjoyed the most was really inspiring, encouraging, and motivating people. And so that's kind of what led me to this process of understanding what area I would focus on. And so that's when I nailed down the area that, the thing that I loved to do the most was really just encourage and inspire people. I loved giving advice. I loved doing all those things. And so someone gave me the idea, like, hey, you've had some pretty interesting experiences. Sure. Why don't you write a book? And I was like, oh, I never actually, thought about that. And so that's kind of what led me to even think about writing a book.
Okay, so now you have an idea. I'm going to write a book. But how did you possibly gather all the information that you wanted to tell people? Did you have an outline, or how did you, in your mind, figure out what to write down on the pages?
The first thing that I did was I read about maybe 3 or 4 books on writing itself, from ebooks to regular books, things that were recommended to me, and just to give me an idea of some type of structure or process, because I had never done this before. And so, reading some ebooks and some regular books on that was critical. I spoke to two people who had written before, so that was also very helpful. And because the book is part autobiographical, I based the book basically on as I was dissecting my life. I had overcome so many experiences. My parents. My mother got pregnant when she was in high school. She married my father quickly after they divorced. I was adopted by my grandmother. We went through some pretty serious financial situations. I don't want to say the word broke. I like to say that we were in a permanent state of financial transition.
Okay.
That's how I like to describe it.
It sounds much more positive, like there is a change, right?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. And that's what I'm about.
Mm-hmm.
We were unfortunately with my grandparents, we struggled financially so much. And at some point, on 2 occasions, we lost our home, once to a foreclosure, once to a fire. And so all these things were happening. It was like, gosh, this is so difficult. I lost my father. He drowned in a fishing accident. I lost my mother to something else. Yeah. And so, I had gone through all these experiences, and then, people would come to me and ask me for advice and things like that. And then that's when I realized that I had kind of learned the art of persevering and overcoming and all those things. And I'm like, wow, this is so valuable. And so as I thought back about all the experiences that I've been through, I'm like, oh, you know what? These are the 7 decisions that actually help me to persevere and to overcome and to find purpose and passion and all those things. And so as I was thinking, I really narrowed it down to those 7 decisions that were at the crux of my transformation. And so little by little, I started off with an outline. And because it was part autobiographical, I basically wrote down the major events of my life. And then I dissected those and I said, okay, well, what's important about that event? And what I was able to find was a common theme. And that theme was a specific decision that I made to kind of point my life in a different direction. And so, I wrote a story, and then I wrote that, I started off with a decision and I wrote a story around it. So the short answer of this is that I wrote an outline first, a very, very, very rough outline. And I added some context to each one of those points in the outline. And then the next thing that I did was I basically put that outline on a PowerPoint presentation, and I recorded myself just speaking extemporaneously about each one of those points on my outline.
Oh, that's interesting.
And the reason why I recorded myself is because I wanted the book to feel like a conversation, because I'm talking about my life and the most important points and lessons that I have. But I didn't want it to be like a lecture. I wanted it to be like 2 people having a conversation. And so after I recorded my outline on just using regular software like Audacity, what I did was I sent that all those, those 8 or 9 chapters that I had, I sent that to someone who transcribed it for me. And so that was kind of like my first rough draft. So that got me going really quickly, because once I received that, then all I had to do was just start typing into each one of those sections and filling in the missing blank, the missing words and ideas and things like that. So that's how I got started with my first draft.
That is really cool, because I'm sure there are people who are listening who are thinking, I can't type, I don't know how to spell, how can I possibly write a book? When what you did is write an outline and then talked what was in your mind and what you were feeling. And after soul searching, came out with the book without really having to type more than a couple hundred words, probably, right?
That's right. And that was just for the initial draft. After that, then, you got to do all the writing and all the typing and all that stuff.
Sure, but it's a big start.
Absolutely. It's a big start, but not only is it a big start, but it kind of gets to the more personal, more conversational aspect of your voice. It literally helps capture your voice is what it does.
And I think it's interesting. Now I understand your title more, Leader by Choice, because you had so many things to overcome. You did make a decision. You could have gone as all of us can, go one way or the other, but somehow we all make these choices. And I just wonder, like, how is that? How do we make these choices to do this, go this way, this journey or that journey, you know?
You know, one of the important things that I realized is that when we have a situation that's unwanted, when we have a difficult situation, sometimes we just need to take a pause and really reflect on, you know, what is it that we can learn from the situation. Sometimes we just go from thing to thing to thing to thing, but we never actually stop and think about, hey, what can I learn from this? What can I take from this? Especially with the bad stuff, you know, that happens in life. We just want to forget about it as soon as possible. But if we just take a few minutes to actually reflect on, you know, what we've learned, we can get so much juice out of life if you just stop and really try to take away some nuggets from those experiences. Because, you know, the weird thing about life is you really learn the most from the moments that you're not capturing on Facebook, right? The stuff that comes out there is like, yeah, that's what we show people, but that's not really the moments that we learn the most from. The moments that we learn the most from are actually the dirtiest, the most difficult, the most challenging experiences.
Sure, not the everyday things. It's not the everyday things that you learn something from. It's when the chips are down, right? And you got to make a decision.
Absolutely.
You can't be angry either. That's another thing you have to get through. Sometimes people just become so angry over a situation, and I think you're right. We have to stop. What can we learn? You know, maybe this didn't go the way we wanted. Maybe it does seem like everything's against us, but there must be a way out of this. And that's what I like about your book, is that one of your points seems to be, even if wherever you are, now's the time to start.
Absolutely. I'm a firm believer in that. You know, doesn't matter what point you are, how old you are, every day is a good day to start.
Great.
Excellent. So, Andre, let's follow the timeline. After you got the transcript back, what was the next step in order to get the book published and to get it out?
After I got the transcribed version back, then basically what I did is I had myself on a very strict schedule. I have to, you know, I have to go to work every day. I have a family, I have kids, right? So I can't write all day. So I actually had about 30 solid minutes every day to write in the morning, maximum 45 minutes. And so I would set a very tight schedule. I woke up at 5 in the morning every day, and I never had writer's block. I read so much about writer's block and all these things, but that was never an issue for me because I had a schedule, and every day I got up, I did the same thing. I wrote for 30 minutes, whether it was good, whether it was bad. One of the most important things that I learned in the writing process is not to edit and write at the same time. You either edit or you write. You got to choose which one you're going to do because your brain can't do two activities at once. So I focused on the writing part, and I wrote for 30 minutes, and whatever came out from those 30 minutes, it came out.
Excellent.
You know, the book, it wasn't one of these books that you can write in 6 weeks. It wasn't. It took me over 2 years to write this. But I really enjoyed the process. It was, not only was it fulfilling, but it was therapeutic. And, you know, it was just one of those things where I focused on a small daily writing goal, which was give me 30 minutes of good writing, and I was happy.
You mentioned writing versus editing.
Yes.
Does that mean did you write like a chapter and then go back and edit it? Or did you just write from start to finish, like go through the whole book? I need to add this, and then once I'm done, then go back and edit? What was your process with the writing and the editing?
I try to write continuously. So every day I would just keep writing, and then the next day I'd continue from where I was, and I continue going from there. I didn't spend a lot of time at first editing. I focused on getting those chapters done. And so most of the editing came at the end of the actual drafts. So at the end of the first draft, then I went back and edited. But the goal was really to write, you know, I'd say a good maybe 2 or 3 drafts, to go through it 2 or 3 times before I actually sent it to an actual editor for the editing.
Wow.
One of my weaknesses is I'm not a good speller. I'm not a grammarian, so I recognize that early in me. I can't catch typos. I'm just not. That's not a strength of mine.
Right.
So I went through those drafts, and then after I had a solid, second draft, third draft, at that point, that's when I started thinking about finding an editor. And so to find an editor, what I did was I used a website called Upwork.com, and I put out there a solicitation for an editor. I said, this is kind of like the budget that I have. And then, I found a lot of editors.
Great.
And so they were a big help in the process, tremendous help in the process.
Excellent. So you'd recommend using Upwork?
I do recommend using Upwork because it gives you a lot of flexibility. And the people that are on there, as opposed to some of the other sites, I find that are a little bit more professional. This is my experience. They're using, they're using their real names, their real photos, their real work history. Mm-hmm. What I've noticed in other sites, they don't really use their real names, their real bios and stuff like that.
Sure,
so
like Fiverr, you don't know really who you're dealing with. You see a cartoon picture of something, and that's the person you're dealing with, right?
Exactly. So I think that in sites where people have their real work history and information, they have more to lose. So I think I just feel like I dealt with more higher quality people on Upwork.com than other sites.
Right. So then you read and wrote over the book 3 times, and then found an editor, sent it off to the editor, and then what was the process after that? Like, how did that lead to getting it published?
Okay, so for editing, I had someone do content editing first. So in other words, they came back. The edits that I got back the first time were, okay, you have to move this section here. You have to cut this out. This is too long. This is too short, right? So that type of content editing. Mm-hmm. I took it back. I went through it again, my own revisions, and then I sent it back for proofreading and that type of editing.
Did you have any stumbling blocks?
I had a lot of stumbling blocks all the way. Okay. Because this was the first time for me doing this, everything was a learning experience, from hiring an editor to working with an editor. It was a positive experience. It wasn't easy. I found the editing process harder than the actual writing process. And every author that I've spoken to has told me the same thing.
Yes, we keep hearing that also. Yes.
So I figured I was on the right track.
After you had the book edited, how did you decide about publishing? Did you go self-publishing, or did you approach publishers?
I spoke to, I actually have a colleague who had published, and I thought about it. And, at kind of at the last minute, I decided I didn't want to go through the whole process of finding an agent, finding a publisher, and all those things, because I had already written the book. Normally, you're supposed to, write a proposal, submit the proposal, and if they like it, then you start writing.
Right.
I didn't want to go through that process, so I just decided to just finish writing it and self-published. I looked at several options, and then I decided to go with CreateSpace.
Oh, excellent!
As my publisher.
On Amazon, And
on Amazon, that's right.
Right, and you've had a good experience with that?
Yes, I did a soft copy. I did an ebook, and then I did the soft paperback. And working with CreateSpace has been super easy. I'm sure there are other services out there. I haven't tried them. I just tried CreateSpace, and then for the ebook, I used another one of Amazon services, the right. Kindle publishing services, and that's been pretty easy. But one thing I did forget to mention, Matt, is along that process, after everything was edited, all the way at the end, once everything was done, I did find someone on Fiverr to do formatting for me.
Oh. Okay.
Because you have to format for publication. They're the ones that do the spacing, the text, the font.
Sure. Sounds time consuming.
All those things. Well, actually, it wasn't. It was pretty quick, because they have some templates that they show you, and then you email your draft to them, and then they'll send it back to you. You know, it could be 24 hours or a few days, but it's actually
Wow.
a pretty a fast process.
Yeah,
And
that's great.
And that's something that's a service that's pretty easy to do. So I found someone on Fiverr, and I had a very positive experience, and I've used that person a few times because I had to go back and do some additional formatting. But that was the other step that I had to do, because you need formatting for the physical version, and then you need formatting that's a little bit different for the ebook version.
And what about your book cover?
For the book cover, I knew someone from my network who helped authors with book covers, so that's how I found this person. I went with that person because I had seen some samples, and that was a pretty easy experience.
Great. Okay, so now your book's here. You're all ready. Now, what do you do for marketing?
That's been the tough part for me.
It is.
We hear that
Figuring
also.
that out.
Yes.
Yeah.
Editing and
so
marketing.
Editing and marketing. So I spent a lot of time now just trying to understand the whole process of selling and communicating. So some of the stuff that I've done is do podcast interviews. I've done blogging on my post. I've done blogging on larger blogs. And what I do is, I'll take some of the content in my book, but I'll format it for, 1,000-word blog post. And so that's one of the ways that I've been kind of sharing the word is through guest posting and podcasting. So those for now, those have been the two ways that I've done the marketing.
We heard you on Kingsley Grant's podcast. We had Kingsley on as a guest early on in our on our podcast.
And we just thought he was one of the nicest people.
He's a great guy.
Yeah. So we wish him well and glad that he's doing well.
But that's a great idea, taking a bit of the book and reformatting it into a blog post, so then people get a flavor for it and they read it and they say, hey, this was interesting. I enjoyed reading those couple of paragraphs. Maybe I'll go buy the book.
That's right. The other thing that I've used is there's a website called Quora.com, and in Quora, it's basically a site where people submit questions that they have, and so I've answered questions along my topic of leadership and management and perseverance and those types of things. And then what I do at the end of a post is I'll say, hey, by the way, if you like this, this my article, you can learn more about me. And then I list the website where you can find my book. I also have a website for my book where you can download a free chapter from my book to give people, a little sampling of it. And so what I do is on these sites like Quora, I write an article, and then at the end I say, hey, if you like the free chapter, if you'd like to buy my book, go to leaderbychoice.me, and then when they go there, it's just a website dedicated to giving a little snapshot of what's in the book, and then they can download a chapter if they want.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah, sounds wonderful.
Great. So that's leaderbychoice.me. Is that what you said?
That's right. Leaderbychoice.me.
Okay, we'll put that in the show notes, so that'll be great.
Thank you.
And then, do you have any advice for first-time authors?
The first thing that I would say is, like we talked about earlier, before we started recording, that there's 80% of people they say want to write a book. If you're one of those, don't think too much about what people think. Don't think too much about coming up with the perfect idea. Come up with a rough outline and just start writing. Most people overthink it, and one day and someday, and one day I'll do this, and when I have, you're never going to have the time. To be honest, you're never going to be less busy. You have to make the time. If you want to do this, you have to make the time. Like I mentioned, my book took over 2 years to write, and I'm so glad that I went through the entire process right now, because it helped clarify my thoughts. It helped give me even more ideas. And having a book in the end has really been like a passport that opens even more doors and more opportunities now.
Right.
So what I say is the most important thing is just sit down and write. The second thing is come up with a schedule and treat that schedule like a job, right? From this time to this time, I'm going to write. So come up with a schedule. And then the third thing is write, don't edit.
Yeah, that seems like very good advice.
Right.
You get
Absolutely.
bogged down with the editing, I'm sure.
Well, your story is very
Absolutely.
inspirational. I mean, you take 30 minutes a day, you get up probably before the kids get up, right? So that you can knock out 30 minutes. And then you did that for 2 years, 3 years, and then you got your book done. So
I
it
got
is
my book
possible.
done.
It is possible to do it if you want to get it done. And you're
Plus, you're
absolutely
living
right.
in different countries and
Right.
learning
Yes.
new things
right.
and new
Right.
experiences. And I'm sure your family's like, what do we do? What? Yeah.
Right.
So,
You know, my wife told me she said, honey, you can have all the time you want as long as it's before the kids wake up.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
yeah.
As much as you want between midnight and 6, right?
Pretty much. So that's what I did. You know, I just woke up early. I wrote it. So then, back to the advice. Just sit down and write. Don't overthink this. Just sit down, sketch out a rough outline, and just fill it in. If you want to record yourself speaking a rough outline, then do that. The most important step is to start. If you don't start, you're never going to finish.
Right. I love that idea of just saying the book, talking the book. It's just a great idea. I'm just really excited about
I can see
that.
that you're very excited about
Because
that.
the idea of sitting down and writing, 1,000 words a day just seems like a lot to me,
Right. And the other thing that I would add to that is don't like, I didn't focus on writing a book. I focused on writing for 30 minutes, which is easier for my brain to process.
Breaks it down.
It breaks it down. It's
Not
like
so
whenever you have a
overwhelming.
big goal, whenever you have a big goal, try to break it down as much as possible to the smallest chunk. And so what I could handle is, okay, look, realistically, I got 30 minutes. If that's what I have, that's what I have. So that's what I work with. So just break it down into the smallest possible area.
Great. And that's great advice, like you just said, not just for writing a book, for any goal that you have. I think that will work very well.
I think so.
So where should our audience look for your book? Where should they purchase it?
I think you can find it on Amazon right now. You can find it on Amazon. You can find it in Barnes & Noble. It's under Leader by Choice, Andres Valdes. You can also go to leaderbychoice.me and you can find it there.
Excellent. That's great. We'll have that in the show notes.
Yes, it's been wonderful talking to you. We wish you and your family the best.
Thank you. It's been great being on your show, and I wish you much continued success.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andre. Great talking to you.
Likewise.
We'd love to hear from our listeners, so please send us a message through Facebook or on our website, theauthorinside.you.com.
And if you have an idea of a first-time author that we could interview, please send them our way. And until next time,
Right on.
Thank you for listening to the Author Inside You podcast with your host, Leah and Matt Rafferty.